Yeah, sorry, Nancy, I was having technical difficulties, but I'm
That's
here.
okay. Started? Yes. Are we on? Yes.
You're up.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm calling to order the virtual meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee on Tuesday, August 3rd at 4:30 PM. Members will be identified by roll call, as will any votes taken. Okay. I'm Nancy Wren is here. Nancy James
Here.
here.
Yes.
Fran McLennan,
Here.
Katie Wibby.
Here.
Yes. And George Wibby
Aye.
is participating, and Marsha Algeier is also participating. Thank you. All right, everybody. The first item on our agenda today is a follow-up to several meetings and subsequent newspaper articles that have been going around town. And I wanted our committee to have an opportunity to weigh in on these and have a little discussion about them and possibly make a recommendation if it's so approved. So when the Affordable Housing Trust Board met on July 20th, two questions arose, but were not fully discussed. One concerned housing on Governor Prince property, and the other one was a question regarding the one proposal from HAC for the 107th Street. The Governor Prince discussions with the Select Board and with George have focused on a serial plan to look at the community center through March, then look at Governor Prince, and then a parallel looking for the economic development survey for the planning board. This process looks like it might go out for several years. Newspaper articles have reinforced this idea, but have also questioned the suitability and commented on the turning away from housing. When the Affordable Housing Trust Board and the committee and the Select Board deliberated over putting forth this town purchase, there was an awareness that it would be a community dialogue, but there was always emphasis on housing. The support letter from the Select Board emphasized that the dialogue, once a yes vote happened, the dialogue would start right after that. Now we're talking about going back to town meeting to pay for a facilitator, which will delay the process even more. So those things are sort of where I've been watching. I came out of my situation here and listened to this and felt like a little bit like some things that we talked about had been slightly forgotten or pushed to the side. So I felt like it was important that we as a committee just talk about that, see what your perception is. I think this might be a moving target concerning the different articles that I'm reading and the conversations that we're having, but I think it's important that we as a committee talk about where we think this project is going, specifically the Governor Prince I want to start with, and just an allusion to the HAC proposal. So before I go any further, I put that on the table and see what you people think about, if you feel that there's some confusion going on or there's some delay going on with our piece of the property. And George, I know you've been the speaker for this for the last couple of meetings, but I feel like we just need to sort of have a discussion about where we're going with this and what we can do. Also, full disclosure, after I saw all these things and concerned myself, I had a discussion with Alan, which I'm going to bring up today. So I like a chance for us to open, concerned about the same things we've always been concerned about, but I just want us to be sure that we're all on the same page as a committee. So the floor is open. And Katie, you know that those two questions were from you, so I'm not gonna, there's full disclosure here as well, but I feel like this is an opportunity for us to talk about where we go next. We're supposed to be the education piece of this, and I just think that we need to know where we're going. So we did not have a meeting last month, and this is more of a, let's catch up with each other and see what we want to do next, if anything.
Yeah,
So
Nancy, I mean, I don't have too much to add. I think my position was
I saw that said it at the last trust meeting. I'm concerned about the conversation that this might not be for housing. I understand, and George, I'm a little, you sent the follow-up to the trust meeting saying that it would have housing, and then I saw the article saying that there would be best efforts for it to be housing. Can you just clarify the town's position of whether or not there will be or should be housing on the Governor Prince?
Sure. Well, to the extent I can clarify it, I will. What was it? Article 23 of the town meeting. The language in the article says to purchase the property for general municipal purposes, including but not limited to affordable housing, the land known as the Governor Prince Motel, and went on and on and on. That was the article. So the article says it's being purchased for purposes including but not limited to affordable housing. I honestly don't see a scenario in which there's not a significant, if not predominant, if not 100% affordable housing use on the site. That's an opinion, that last sentence there. But then in the summary of the article, it says that moving forward with the purchase will secure the property, provide the town time needed to reach consensus on the best possible reuse to meet the town's current and future needs, including funding for design services, et cetera, et cetera. So, there was an assertion that there would be some review of the property to see what is the best way to use this significant private property purchase. I am not a decision maker in this, but I am. I think it's appropriate for the committee to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. It sounds like many members of the Board of Selectmen, a couple of them have their minds made up that the position of housing is absolutely ironclad. I just went back to the article because I think I might have, I don't know, sort of lost my way in the facts of it at the Housing Trust. And I want to make sure it was clear that the intention was to be purchased for general purposes, including affordable housing.
Including, yes. But that didn't come through really clear, and it hasn't come clear in some of the articles that the newspapers. So I think to reinforce that is important. Fran, do you have any comments?
I do. You said in your summary, Nancy, that George had indicated that the studies would be serial studies, and I had no sense that that would be necessarily true. Seems to me these can be perfectly parallel studies.
That was my opinion. That was what I thought too, but that is not what I actually took notes at that meeting, and it said
clarification on that, because I think if we were going to move ahead and do housing on this site, we would want public outreach, and this will provide a wonderful opportunity for us to talk with people in the community about affordable housing, about what kind of affordable housing they want, for whom, what design, mixed use or all affordable, tax credit programs or bigger programs or smaller programs. So to me, this is an ideal opportunity. And frankly, the vote is the vote. So we're going to go ahead with the process. So some people may not like the process, but I would put forth the idea that this is a great process for us to begin our community engagement around housing specific to this particular site, but it will apply to in general in town. So we get to tell our story, and I think that's all good.
and it's clear that we don't know what we want for this particular property. I think that's very clear at this point. And we want some affordable housing. We don't know what the configuration is going to be. That is really a time to bring the community together. But that's why initially when this was presented at the 2-3 meetings that I listened to, it would seem like the theory was do the community center study and then let that inform the next study. And that may be, you may have changed your position on that, George, but that was what was explained initially, that what we learned from that would help us make our decision. And my feeling was we could be studying both of these at the same time. And when the time was right, we could put them together in terms of what Governor Prince and what the community center study came up with. So I'm not putting you on the hot seat here, George, but I listened really carefully to these meetings, and it seemed like that's where we were going. So
You know, the people who know me the most don't listen carefully when I speak all the time, and sometimes that's a good idea.
what did you say?
Sorry.
Again?
No. Look, we had 3 projects, and I went to the selectmen with my ideas about how we would organize this in what I thought was a logical fashion. It seemed to me that the very small land need study of the community center made sense to get out of the way, so it's not something that we're ever waiting for. And quite frankly, it may have little to do with the Governor Prince property. So that was my idea. In fact, there is a community center feasibility study task force that's being formed, and we'll get that out the door and have a consultant come in and do the needs study for that.
If I could add, I believe, is it not true that the community center study doesn't relate to a specific property? It only relates to the feasibility, the need, what kind of programs, what kind of space would be needed for the programs, but it doesn't zero in on any property. So even if they finish that study, they still haven't decided where it should go. So for us to wait for that study really doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a land needs study, a building needs study. So it's not about location at all, but it's about customizing what a community center should be in Orleans if it moves forward. That's it. So no, believe me, I am not the decision maker on this one. The economic development plan is something I think can be done completely in parallel and somewhat separate from the other 2 studies, really. I get a lot of phone calls, and there are some people who think that the Governor Prince is absolutely vital to, the local economy downtown, to which, really it's one parcel. It's a big parcel. It's a significant parcel, not the largest one in town, but it's an important piece of property, but doesn't have to be part of the economic development plan. And in fact, while the Finance Committee would like us to do a pretty short and quick hitting economic strategy for business development downtown, that is not what the Planning Board is going to do. They're looking at a long-term plan for appropriate growth to meet the needs of residents of Orleans long-term. So that gets done on a parallel track. What happens with the Governor Prince, is certainly up to discussion. I think the selectmen are talking with the trust tomorrow night about the deed restriction, and I don't know if there are any other, sequencing or a process-oriented issues that will come up at that. But if if you have an opinion about that process, you can make that known to those who can actually make the decisions on it. And I'd be glad to carry that information forward if you do decide something today.
This is in regard to the addendum to the deed. Is that what you're talking about for August 4th?
That's the agenda item, right?
The only thing that I heard at the meeting was the select board, Mike Ford, was that they were going to make sure that the money would be paid back in case, there was not housing. That was the emphasis at the meeting. I don't know what else is in the deed. Is there something else in there that gives a deed restriction to anything or not?
I think it's a legal requirement that to make sure that there is some kind of reverter clause in there, but I don't think it's an intention. I don't think it means it's some intention to somehow use the property entirely for some different purpose. I've not heard that. And in fact, I've heard just the opposite when you get into the public discussion on it.
Right. Okay. Nancy, did you have something to add to this discussion? Did you give you a chance? No. Okay. Marcia, do you have any comments? No, you're okay? Okay. So I wanted to bring up this thing that Alan and I had talked about. Alan, Affordable Housing Trust Board is a possibility to get this moving. And it was suggested that I ask this committee if it would endorse it and send it back to this committee to see if it was something that we thought might help the process along. So we're going to have a discussion on that, and if possible, a vote either in favor or not in favor of it. And the suggestion was, in order to get the discussion started for this property sooner than after, originally to get a facilitator, it goes to town meeting in October, it has to be approved, and then an RFP has to go out for it. So ostensibly, it could take us almost till December, maybe, to get a facilitator going on for that. So the suggestion was perhaps the Affordable Housing Trust Board could pay for a facilitator to get this discussion going, not only for housing, but for general purposes. And that was a suggestion. The other suggestion was perhaps in order to figure out what the land was like, had possibilities for the land, maybe the Affordable Trust could also pay to finance a land survey to see what is possible on that, not to make any decisions, but so when we're ready to make a decision, when the town is ready to make a decision, and when all the discussion has been completed, that piece would be done too, to know what was possible on that land as well. So those were two suggestions made, and a suggestion that we talk about that. Not that we get to have any more power over this decision, but going back to the letter of support that the select board members did, they said the dialogue would continue through the leadership of our town. And that's what we wrote in that support letter. And I think a facilitator paid for by Affordable Housing Trust could be used by the select board or whoever else needs to be the lead on there. But the idea is not to wait for a lot longer to ask for more things from town meeting, but to get this started. So I put that on the table and for discussion. Is that clear? Is it clear enough to you? It's more of an idea to kickstart this program rather than waiting for more funding from the town. I think the town was actually, the town, Affordable Housing Trust Board is the town's money as well. But the idea was to get this started earlier than having to go through another phase of town meeting. So,
May I?
yes.
But just, I don't know, I don't totally agree with the statement that the trust board is the town money. It's earmarked for a specific thing. So I don't like saying that it's town money, it's trust money, and it's restricted in what it can be used for. Whether or not it's town money, I don't know. I just don't, I don't know that I agree with the statement, but neither here nor there. Putting that aside, I hesitate greatly in suggesting we use any trust money for any studies when there's a simultaneous conversation that there may not be housing. I don't think that is something that we should be using trust money for when we're at the same time talking about putting a reverter clause in there that the money come back to the trust. I don't think it's wise to spend that money. We just saw how much money it's going to cost the trust to get the 107 Main Street up and running. If there is ever going to be housing on Governor Prince, and if it's only a small portion, it's also going to be an extremely high cost per unit. And I think that money should be spent on housing. I don't think we should be spending it on studies that are potentially talking about not putting housing on it.
Okay, so you're talking about the land study then? Because the facilitator is not a study, it's a way to get a discussion going that we can see what people want, and not only about housing, but just in general to see what people are interested in for Governor Prince. So
Study or facilitator, I would probably be opposed to both, but open to the conversation to hear what everybody else has to say. But at the onset, I would hesitate to vote in favor of that.
okay. Fran?
I think I'm thinking about this differently. I think that it's more productive to work collaboratively with our residents who have multiple interests. And I think to set up a competitive situation around the use of this property doesn't suit anybody's needs. When it comes to actually getting it passed at town meeting, and we will need to go to town meeting, obviously, that we need a supermajority of voters. So to act as if our need is the greatest and we're going to wait till you finish your needs and we can get you out of the way and then we're going to go ahead, I don't think leads to a cooperative environment. We know that we had a lot of conflict around wastewater over the years, and we didn't get the supermajority, and it would have cost a lot less had we moved forward earlier on. But what we did is we used the consensus and discussion process to bring people on board. And I think that we have to have that conversation for housing anyway, because we don't, even amongst our trust and our committee, have a clear definition of what we are trying to promote, what kind of housing, big or small, mixed income or all affordable. We need to flush that out with the community. And I think supporting community needs is the way that we're going to get the vote. And the only way we're going to get affordable housing is to be collaborative with other people's interests, to tell our story, to create our story, to hear the concerns. And I think that we need that vote. And I would hope we could take a welcoming attitude as opposed to our need is greater than yours and we want you out of the way approach.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. And that's not, I haven't been saying that right along. I don't think we've said that our need is greater. I think that, how are we going to do this discussion though? I mean, who is going to be the lead on this discussion? I'm all for bringing everybody together. And that was the plan. All the talking that we did up to town meeting, every meeting that we had was, we're going to have a group discussion and we're going to have somebody facilitate it and make it happen. But who is that going to be and when is that going to be? Because I don't think it should wait long term. More people are making more. If we want a collaborative effort, it makes more sense to do it sooner than later, before people get entrenched. There's already some entrenchment and we don't want that, as Fran just said. So who is going to be the lead on this that sets the tone to make this happen? We talked about this constantly, how important this was, and now suddenly it seems to be forgotten. So where do we go? What do we suggest? Where do we go to get this dialogue started? Because we don't want to just do housing by itself. We really want to do it more as a general topic of what people want in the town. I thought that was the whole idea. It wasn't decided. There were lots of interests, but it was so we could have a dialogue. And I don't see anyone thinking about that at all right now. How do we take that next step? So,
I would agree with you, Nancy. I don't think that we were saying that our needs are above anybody else's, but we are the Affordable Housing Committee and it's the Affordable Housing Trust Board, and it's our role to advocate for housing. So I think we should be advocating for housing. As far as the community needs, saying a community needs facilitator, I mean, I'll leave it to town council, but I don't think we can use housing trust fund money to use a facilitator to figure out what the community needs are. I mean, if we want to have a conversation about what we think, which type of housing would be best suited for that, and it be centered on housing, I think that's a different conversation. But a community needs, which encompasses things other than housing, I don't think that's money that we should spend from the trust.
well, then
Kate, can you imagine 3 separate groups working on the economic development, housing, and community center, and that those groups each have representatives toward a larger discussion amongst town members about the needs for how we create a sustainable community? Would you see that we could each advocate for our different roles and our different needs, and that we could together agree to some consensus about how to move forward on this particular property. It's already the vote. It's going to happen because it was voted to do so. So let's use it.
I don't suggest that there isn't going to be a conversation about different uses. There clearly will be. What I'm saying is I don't think we should use trust money for a discussion about community uses, because I don't think it's an appropriate use of money that's earmarked for affordable housing in the Affordable Housing Trust. That's my understanding of how that money should be used.
So if you balance that with, shall we wait for a town meeting to approve the money in October and then start the conversation after that, which I guess is more important.
No, I don't think you're understanding me, Fran. I don't think we can use the trust money for a community discussion to what to do with the property. I'm not saying that it's better or worse or anything else. I'm saying that housing money needs to be used for housing development. I don't think we can use it for a discussion about other uses of the property.
I hear you. That would probably be a legal opinion on that.
And I'm
So
saying
back-
I'm leaving it to town council. I don't know the answer, but that's
Yeah.
my understanding.
Yeah, I hear you.
I have 2 points to back that one up and say, what if, and I'm not really pushing any of this. This is a discussion. I'm not sure what side I'm on at the moment. So, but what if we backed it up and asked the trust for what Fran was talking about, having a discussion about what kind of housing we want. Where do we want to go from here? We've got 2 processes already in place. What else do people see? What if you had a facilitator just for housing and then had a discussion with the group for that? Because I think that might be something, we need to have somebody, this discussion of the town of what kind of housing might be possible. If it's not on Governor Prince, is it someplace else in terms of what way we want to go next? We haven't done that yet. And can we do that ourselves, or is that somebody we might need some help with having that discussion? That's not what I proposed the first time, but that's enough from the discussion. I'm seeing that might be another way to go that we might want to think. The second piece that comes out of this is I wish Andrea was here, because she's like, the process lady. Every meeting she says process is so important. What we need to do is find out what is the process for the community discussion for Governor Prince. And I don't know if anybody's talked about it yet. Maybe it's not our role to do anything about it, but I think it is our role to ask the question maybe and to find out what is the process going to be. Hi, Rich. Welcome. Rich Kendall has just joined the group.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay. So those are 2 things that just come out of this discussion.
Nancy, I would agree that there, even amongst the committee and the trust, there is no consensus on what type of housing would be best suited for this. And I don't know that we would need to hire a facilitator or do a request for, housing developers to say, what do you think you could do with this property? I don't know, but I would absolutely agree that there's no consensus, and that conversation needs to be had moving forward. And again, I think if it's a discussion about what type of housing is going on here, I think you can use Affordable Housing Trust to an extent, but remember they're limited to 100% of housing. So I don't know that you can do even a conversation about mixed housing with Affordable Housing Trust money, because it's limited to 100%. And again, I don't know the answer to that, but that's my understanding of it.
Would it be helpful to the town in terms of their decision-making process to know what the Affordable Housing Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust think is the priority type of affordable housing right now for Orleans, and propose that type of housing be what is put on the Governor Prince property because it is the priority? What do we know about what type of affordable housing is a priority right now? I mean, I think people have their viewpoints and their opinions, but how would we express that in a credible and compelling way to the town for what type of housing. And if we knew that, if we spent our time on that, would that help things move along more quickly? I don't know.
Don't know.
I mean, is that even is that a legitimate question, or is that just, that's really not the question here?
Because I feel like we're at a point now where we've been doing a lot of discussing. We're at a point where we have 2 projects that are on their way, but we're now at a point where we need to get more information. Like Katie said, we don't all agree on what's next. And I don't think the town all agrees on what's next. And so to get some options, possible options on the table for discussion seem to be, but those are just and not based in any reality with developers or anything. So it's just a conversation. But I guess the question is, do we want to continue to have the conversation with the town and push more affordable housing possibilities or mixed use housing? I know we can't do mixed use housing, but I don't think we can't talk about it in terms of what people want, in terms of what the town wants. I think we're at a crossroads here that we can either decide, going back to what Katie said, the trust and the committee probably need another meeting about where do we go next, because I think we want to be sure we're all on the same page and how we fit into this next phase. I mean, we talked about earlier how lucky we were. We had like so many projects. We had nothing, and then we had so many. Now we have so many, but I think it's, we got excited about the first 2, and now we're into the 3rd one, and we need to almost step back and almost start again and have another discussion with both committees, and then broaden it to the townspeople to see where we are. And if that can happen, I think that would be a good use of, our time, and maybe let the other things grow as they need to, but we'd have some information as well in terms of when things are available, what we think we might like to do. So.
Can I ask a question of Marcia, Nancy? I mean, Marcia, do you have a suggestion on how this conversation moves forward?
Well, it sounds like there's 2 separate parts. I mean, there's a part about what if housing, what housing. And I certainly can give some opinions on that. But obviously the broader question is 5.5 acres, how do you want to use it? Because if you're going to approach housing, then it obviously makes a difference. I have all kinds of ideas for 5.5 acres of housing. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. And Nancy, to your question, the study and the work of the committee since the study has set forth targeted priority groups. That's already clear. And you set forth in the goal. But it's always a case of which groups, in what combination, to what level, with what kind of density, with what kind of financing. And if you gave me 5.5 acres, I think a tax credit, multi-income housing would be very attractive. If you're saying it's only half of it, because the other half is going to be used for other municipal purposes, it changes the equation greatly. So that's why the bigger question is, in addition to housing, what else? I'm not going to say in place of housing, but in addition to housing, what else? Which is why I understood George's point is, we say community center, but community center can be 10 acres or it could be a rec center or anything in between. So I thought the point was to try to put some land number to what people mean by community center. Then, if you're talking about a 5.5 acre community center, well, that's very different than if you're talking about a 1/2 acre outdoor recreational type thing. So that's why I thought they needed to have the discussion community center, because when you say community center, people think of a full range of things. And if that full range of things can be all of the site or none of the site, it's hard then to talk about multi-uses on the site. So the question really is, and Katie might be right in that you can't use the trust money. The question is, how do you start the general conversation about, you got 5.5 acres, prime property. What are the range of uses the community would want to talk about? And how do we then start drawing circles and boundaries, et cetera? And a good community facilitator with a diverse group of interests could move the community forward in that discussion. But the question is how to get that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for moving the process along. I mean, obviously, the sooner the better. I don't think we can use housing trust money for a general study or a general facilitator. But if that's a question that we want to pose to town's council, we can certainly pose that to the Board of Selectmen. Say the Affordable Housing was asking that, we pose this question. I'm happy to bring that to the meeting tomorrow, or something along those lines. Because I agree, Nancy, I'd love to make it move faster. I just don't know how to do that.
But I think that is the question of the day. I think somebody has to come up with an answer to that. If it's not us, it's not the Affordable Housing Trust Board, it's got to be somebody in the leadership of the town. Marcia just did an excellent job of explaining the whole thing right there. We need her to be the leader here, because I really think the way you just asked those questions is exactly what the process is. And the process needs to get started, because I feel we owe the town the opportunity to do this sooner than later. We asked them to commit. We mentioned that that's what we were going to do. We were going to buy this without an answer, but we promised that we would engage the town in the decision-making. And I feel like we haven't said we're not going to do that, but it's not a priority right at this moment. And I think it needs to be put back as a priority, as well as finding out what the community center information does. I don't think it should wait till after that. I think it should be concurrent with that, but that's my opinion.
So just to clarify for me, because I don't understand, the town right now does not have a plan for a facilitator or research or whatever to make the decision about how this land, how the Governor Prince land is used. That's not on the table right now.
There was no money for a facilitator apparently in that money.
And would that need to wait for the October meeting?
Yes, that's how this got started, because,
Okay.
and then an RFP would go out and decisions would be made. So how long that would take is question. George, you can jump in.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything anybody said, but the money for the purchase of the property was $2.8 million for the land itself. $100,000 was allocated to design the remediation of the site, the engineering, and $25,000 was also in there for insurance and maintenance of the property to make sure we keep it secure for some period. So that's all the money that is available. So, October is 2 months away. I suppose it is possible to solicit proposals prior to having money in hand, with any award or contracting being done subject to the town meeting, which I think is like the 25th of October. So you could potentially start right there. So we're talking about, I have a feeling if you want to just talk about using the Housing Trust Fund, that's going to take a little bit of time too. So the difference might be 6 or 8 weeks. I don't know. If we're anxious to move forward, the only other option here is that the selectmen, who can control, general municipal property, take a vote that it's going to be used only for housing, and then we start in on how to figure out the housing mix. But absent that, and being what the town meeting article said, I think you need to go through the process to see what these 5.5 acres are best used for.
Can I
How
ask
much
a question
Go
of
ahead.
George?
Fran?
George, isn't it possible for the Board of Selectmen to go to the Finance Committee when there is a need for finances that are not allocated for something else, and it's sort of an emergency fund that the Finance Committee can then
Yeah,
release?
there's what they call a reserve fund transfer request. The Finance Committee, I think, has a reserve fund somewhere around $50,000 that they can use for unanticipated costs. So whether these could be categorized as such might be an open question. I don't know.
Maybe that's something we can ask of the Board of Selectmen. that they request the funds and let's get started.
And who would do that? Would that be from our committee?
Sure, why not?
Yep. I
Well,
think
we
it-
can pose a question. I mean, I'm
Sure.
happy to pose any question from the Affordable Housing Committee to the meeting tomorrow if you'd like me to do that. I'm sure George or Marcia would be happy to do that as well. So if there's something you want to know,
I'd like to find out when the process can get started and a way to finance a facilitator in order to commit to what we promised, which was a town discussion once we bought it. And we said that it was going to come relatively soon after we bought it. The inference was that it would happen. If you agreed to buy this, then we would have a discussion. I'm just going to read this paragraph from the why the town should acquire the Governor Prince property. This was put on the website. The select board approved this letter. It was approved by the Affordable Housing Trust and Affordable Housing Committee. And this paragraph says this: purchasing the property is the first step. Following a yes vote, the select board will conduct a thorough analysis of how the needs and goals of the citizens of Orleans match with the property. Town leaders recognize the importance of collaborating with the people who live and work in the town to reach consensus, and will develop a process for a robust and engaging comprehensive dialogue leading to a plan for development. Input from the public is critical to success and will be actively sought and incorporated. We wrote that, and we put that, and we posted that, and I think that there's a reason to support that for going forward. And whatever the decision is made is the decision. I'm talking about the process that we said we would do this, and the sooner we do it, the more information we'll have to make better use of the information for the future. And that's sort of where I want to leave our committee. Fran,
Could I make a motion
yes,
that we, the committee, send a message to the Board of Selectmen that we invite them to kickstart this facilitated process by requesting funding from the reserve fund, or whatever it's called, from the Finance Committee, and that we hope they will move as quickly as possible forward in the process.
second it. Can we vote on that motion? Any discussion? Rich?
Real quick before you do the vote, I'm wondering what the finance committee has, at least their ideas of the property, because they probably have the financial kind of picture in mind, and that would kind of be limiting into whatever we may dream up or anybody else dreams up.
I think they're just going to fund the study, I would hope. That would be, we're asking them to fund the facilitator. That would be not to make a decision on it, right? Isn't the motion to fund a facilitator to get the discussion going? And they could be part of the discussion as well.
Perfect, yeah. Good.
So, any other discussion? We have a vote on motion. Fran,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Katie,
I
Nancy James,
Aye.
Nancy Wren, aye. And who is going to do that then? I should say, we'll send this from the Affordable Housing Committee. Or you don't want to we need to bring this to the select board tomorrow, or make this a formal request?
I mean, it's a recommendation, right? It's a
Request.
suggestion of that they take under consideration, because we don't have any, authority to ask for a vote on it. It's just bringing the recommendation as a request. So I don't know, Nancy, if you want to send an email to Alan, I'm sure he would do it, or it can go through one of us. It's up to you.
I'm glad to carry it forward if you like, but it'd be good if someone from the committee attended the meeting to be the proponent for it.
This is tomorrow's meeting you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the beginning. I'll do that, and Katie might be there, or Fran, you
I'll
want
be
to do?
there.
I'll be there.
All right. Who wants to do it? Or just you, George, you're going to present it and we'll support it?
Sure.
Okay. That was a
George,
good, Good
What's
discussion.
the dollar amount for the facilitator that you're thinking?
I'm thinking $75,000, but that is a out of the air number. If you had used the housing trust fund, if they had funded it, you could just go on an hourly basis with a not to exceed number and then go back to the housing trust fund if you went over. So I think we'll just have to, maybe this is the money to get started. I don't know. I'm not sure the exact number.
You could probably break it down. I mean, one is a facilitator to set up a community process, and then what has to happen in order to then come out with a plan for the 5.5 acres would take much more time and money. But
Yeah.
if you want to kickstart with a facilitator, start with a lower level, and then the question is, where would the rest of the money come?
I like that idea, actually. Just get it started for a community process, and then maybe the other groups will fill in once it happens.
Well, you
All
still have
right.
to come up with the rest of the money, or you might just say it's a phase 2 to actually come up with the plan.
Okay.
So if I may, Nancy, this is not on the agenda for tomorrow with the select board. I'll ask for a moment to speak on it and bring it up. But it may not be judged to be in order, just so you know. I'm not sure what the purpose is tomorrow beyond the deed restriction.
That's what I was actually wondering about myself. So I'm thinking usually they won't discuss something else on an agenda unless it's a public, we could do it as a public speak. That's the only other option. But I think maybe we need to present it and go to the select board at another meeting. I
Well,
mean,
you know, public comment is a perfectly reasonable way for a committee to make a comment to the selectmen. And it's an open forum. You're welcome to do it. It actually works pretty well. I've seen them jumpstart projects with public comment.
why don't we do that, Fran? Are you feel comfortable doing public comment tomorrow and explaining the reason why we want to do it? It's a follow-up to what the select board had agreed to, and as also a way to get the community working together. A lot of things we've talked about during this. Do you feel good about doing that?
Sure.
If you don't, I'll do it, but if you want to do it, I'll be
No, I'm
glad to
happy
have you do it.
But obviously, Nancy, if you prefer to do it as chair, I'm fine with that as well.
I think you did a nice job. I think it's a good idea, and I think this conversation was helpful in terms of just getting some of this stuff out there. And I think it seems like a good plan to just get, mostly I just want to get it started. And however it gets started is my goal. So whatever works, the easiest way, the fastest way, I think is what we want to do. All right. That took longer than I thought, but it was important.
Do we want to
I'm not
think
sure.
about asking the trust to finance a survey of the property, which we would certainly need to do in order to evaluate what kind of housing might be able to go on that property? I think that people think of 5.5 acres. When I started thinking 5.5 acres, I thought 5.5 relatively flat acres. The topography of that property is significant. And I think the topography will play a role in how that property is used. So if we were to consider housing, I think that we would need to know how the topography fits into the kind of housing that we might propose in the future. So having a survey takes a while, and let's get that jump starting as well.
By asking the trust board to get that started.
That would be my
Yes.
recommendation.
Any discussion about that? I think we can just do this as a recommendation. We don't have to have a vote on this.
Sure.
I think they wanted us to sort of think it was useful and sort of be in agreement with them. I don't know if we need to take a vote on it, but is there anyone who disagrees with the idea that a land survey would be helpful? And that'll be brought up at the trust board, and it'll be discussed in detail at the trust board, and the final decision will be made by them, not by us.
Okay.
So, but I think more information we have, the easier it is to have a further discussion about what might be possible, as opposed to what we just might like to have. So I think that I would suggest that we encourage them to
There
look
have
at
been many
that.
voices
that's all
that
we have
speak
to-
to the urgency of affordable housing. So anything we can do to move this process forward quickly, I just think we want to support.
Right, that's the whole point. So thank you very much. All right, so we will support that and we will make a statement to get the facilitator started. All right, thank you, everybody. Everybody happy? I don't know what this is. This gets difficult. Okay, let me just look for a minute. The only other, I don't really want to get into a long discussion of the Main Street, 107 Main Street. I only put it on the agenda, but came up as a discussion piece between myself. Felt that I needed to bring it back to the group. There was a question, there was only one proposal for this, and it was, and there was a question whether there should have been more. The answer was, there's not a lot of people out there who want to make build a small one. The question was, I think it was confusing at the meeting. I think it might be clarified later, so I don't want to go too far into the weeds with this one. We might be talking out of turn, but my observation of the first meeting was that there was a comment that they were going to town meeting to ask for the money for this. And I thought there were other ways that they were going to finance it. Subsequently, Alan said there might be other ways to finance it, and how much what the town is receiving for its donation is a little bit questionable. And those questions were asked and not answered completely. So my suggestion is that we just keep watching the trust board and try to figure out what they're doing with it. I looked at the data. We're putting in the land and at this point, $1.8 million. And we've just asked for a bunch of money from the town this past May. So my question is, are there other routes to this? Is this the best route? I know that they're using good design that we wanted, and a lot of things are very positive about it, but I think it's just a question of, it seemed confusing. The presentation seemed confusing in what was happening. So that was the only reason I brought it up. And I don't think I could go any further unless someone else would like to clarify any of that information for me. I think it's still on, when I spoke to Alan, it says it was not written in stone. I'm not sure, I don't know if that proposal is completed and accepted or not, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
no.
procurement process is ongoing. The selection committee actually made a recommendation to the town administrator to award the job with about 10 specific conditions, not the least of which is a land disposition agreement and subject to town meeting or town funding. So nothing. This is not completed. If the town administrator is comfortable and negotiates with Housing Assistance Corporation, he'll then need the concurring supporting vote of the Housing Trust and the Select Board, because it would be conveying property out, and the Select Board has a role in that. So there's plenty of public process yet to come on this one before you have a project that is ready to go.
Okay, that's enough on that. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Because I'm all right. Okay, now we go back to the charge. Okay. I thought we were close, but then I got more information. I think we are very close. And I just wanted to at least be honest in terms of sending out this information of improvements to the charge. We can either, I think we today could either say yes, no, and be done, unless somebody really wants to debate it much longer. Does that sound like a plan? Can we go through, I sent you these comments about that. I think we could decide if we're okay with it. If it's, I think what we're trying to do is make it more detailed. Whether that's necessary is the question right now. And I'm not going to be the final decider on this, but I felt like I needed to at least go through these things that were offered to me, and then maybe we can just end it today if that would be possible. So do you have a copy? I hope you have a copy of the June 2020 revision. and the copy of the edits or concerns. Yes, everybody on board with this?
Nancy, is there a typo at the top? The draft charge, is it say 6/23/10? Is it supposed to say 20? Otherwise, I'm not looking at the right one.
Yeah, that's the one I got too.
What?
The date on the top left-hand corner, 6/23/10.
June 2021.
Okay, that's not the one that was attached to your original email.
Shoot.
At least I don't think so.
That is not good. I thought this would be. What do we do about this thing? I could send it to you now, but I don't think it's. Oh, well, then let's, you want me to defer this to the next meeting? Because we've been doing this for like a year now. Do you want to just maybe talk about adding any of this to this? And then I can take it to this and see if you want to add anything to it. I don't know. Let's, has everybody had to 6/23? I'm sorry about that because I thought we had sent the other one. The one that you like, the one that you did, George, is the one that says June 2021, correct?
I do have that in my files. That wasn't distributed for the meeting here. I didn't even look at the date until recently.
This is the one that had 10 points, 10 objectives, not at the bottom, which is the new objectives.
Yeah.
Same screen share, that's the one.
Nancy, could I suggest that maybe there's some just main ideas. This is your opportunity to make the housing committee separate and distinct in its role from the housing trust. This is the charge. All the work you do will come out of your charge. And if you get too far afield, somebody will say, well, is that consistent with your committee charge? So to me, the main ideas for the committee should be to identify and update housing need in the community, to educate the community about the importance of housing and the type that is needed and how important it is, and to identify project opportunities and move them along to a certain stage until they can be they become housing trust projects. I thought about possibly mentioning the housing trust in here to just, to make distinct roles, but that's probably not necessary to do. Frankly, some of the old items that were in the charge to me are obsolete or just like little islands of thinking, not necessarily a cohesive statement of what the housing committee does as distinct and separate from the housing trust. So,
That's exactly what you did with this draft, actually, the draft that you're supposed to have. Let me just, in this, it does say we work with the Affordable Housing Trust Board in concert with them. And this one does have, this one does have only what we do on this one. I think what we need to do is, I'm going to send this back out. I'm sorry about the confusion because the one that you're looking at has other things that the trust does. I'll send this one back out that George had rewritten the second time, which I thought this was it. Let me just look at the edits here, just so we can either take out or deny it. And then we can go and I'll send out this one and we'll vote on it in September, hopefully. Someone wanted us to consider removing the 10% since it's confusing to people. I don't think that do you agree with that, George? Or we have to have the 10% in there because.
Well, we're at 10%, 10.6% today.
Could that change if we have more people living on Cape than not living on Cape?
If Orleans gets more seasonal in the next biennial census, then your year-round affordable numbers will go up, your percentage. But what I mean to say is you're over 10% today, and you have the most acute housing problem the town's ever seen. So maybe that's not a relevant figure anymore.
So maybe we could say, I think we take that out of the charge. I don't know. Is that legal? That's one question.
Well, I don't know. I don't,
So-
George, correct me if I'm wrong. We're not limited to 10%, to only advocating for 10%. We can
No.
advocate for anything. This committee
Yeah.
also isn't limited to advocating for 100% affordable. We could advocate
Absolutely,
for
yeah.
something more than 100% of AMI.
Right.
I don't see this committee as having as nearly as many restrictions as the trust. We can certainly advocate for whatever we think the need in our community is as it relates to housing.
That is an extremely important point and that we haven't really ever addressed. And I think that's where the other things about the workforce and all the other things, the questions keep coming up. If we can advocate for that, then we're fine. We're not spending money, we're advocating for that, correct? All right, so
The trust is limited to spending the money only on 100% or less.
So Nancy, would you like to indulge me to work with Marcia and maybe just try to one last draft of the trust consistent with the stuff from the June 20th version and our discussion we've had, just bring you some back that hopefully is a little more streamlined and targeted to what your committee will want to do.
What I would also
that's a
suggest
wonderful
is,
suggestion. Yes,
sorry.
Marsha?
Yeah, what I would suggest too is, I mean, this is your overall charge. It's not your plan for the next year or 2 or 3 or whatever. So I don't know that you have to be, I understand the workforce housing, but why bring that one up as opposed to anybody else? Basically, the committee looks at priority needs, establishes those priorities, establishes strategies, policies, the broad picture, updates, educates, but maybe not actually builds them on the ground, because that's what the trust does. So I would think you would want the broader, long-term view of the community as a whole, the housing, the role of housing, and the broad things that have to be done to meet that. So I would do it simpler, but also broader, and not focus in on 1 or 2 things now, which may or may not be a priority in 5 years or 3 years or whatever.
Okay, well, I think I would love to put it in the hands of the 2 experts, and we'll let it go. We'll hopefully have it decided by next meeting. Yes, that's
Can I
the
just
goal,
make
Just
right?
a question
This
about,
is-
could I ask a question about goals? I noticed in the one that we did get, which was the 6/23/10 date, it says that the committee shall act as an agency of the town in the pursuit of affordable housing goals as expressed in the Orleans Comprehensive Plan. And so I wondered, is the comprehensive plan the appropriate place for the goal? And then the Affordable Housing Committee is just helping the town meet that goal? And if that's where the goal should be, would the town also like assistance from the Affordable Housing Committee in stating what the goal is, and keeping that up to date? Because, maybe on an annual basis, what are the priorities now, or something like that? Just a question. And if it's not appropriate, let me know. And
George, you have to answer that one. It's your plan.
It's your plan as a citizen. Nancy, just in quickly, the Orleans Comprehensive Plan is like the overarching guidance document for the town. It tries to take in accommodate all the various issues that the community needs to wrestle with. It was last updated in 2006 at a time when we were far below the 10% affordable housing requirement for 40Bs. So that was the goal at the time. So I think having a reference to the comp plan, I think it's appropriate to leave it in the charge. That's fine. But the comp plan is a 350-page document that hopefully will only be updated once in the next decade. Okay, it's not something some towns go back with pieces of their comp plan all the time. I think it results in a hodgepodge that the community doesn't understand. So we're looking at a big effort about a year or 2 from now.
Okay,
George.
that's helpful. Thank you.
And the correct draft does not have that mentioned in it. It does not
Okay.
mention in the
Okay.
correct draft. So
Okay.
I'm very happy to give this to George, and Marcia and I will look at it and we'll bring it back. I just think we need to just have this on record that we've addressed the fact that we are no longer everything. The Affordable Housing Trust Board has its part and we have ours. And just to make that clear and concise and finished is important to me, just to have it
Can
done.
I just make one suggestion, Nancy?
Certainly.
Just when you're thinking about it, perhaps look at the documents, the guiding principles of the trust that Fran and Ward worked on, and just sort of identify
Yes.
broadly
Yeah.
the roles that we've agreed that the trust will do. Not, you don't have to mention the trust, but maybe identify the bulleted points that were specific to the affordable housing, just to make it
This one, I think that's why we took out a bunch of things.
cohesive.
Out of the one that you have, we took out a bunch of those because they had moved to the trust. But we'll work on this. This will be a nice project to complete and be done with. So thank you, everybody. Do I have any suggested topics for future agendas? Item number 4. Does anyone have anything they would like to talk about besides what we've already talked about today? Nobody? I think we still have quite a bit on our plate. I mean, as far as what's going on, but is there any other topic that needs to be addressed?
Nancy, just what you suggested earlier, with maybe a joint meeting with the trust about how we move forward with just having the conversation about what type of housing.
Good. I think that's a good one. And I think I will follow up on that.
I like that. And also, I think we might want to follow up with the data that we had met in June.
With Brad.
We talked about collection of updating data about housing in town. So if we want to follow up on how to use that, and we might consider talking about that as well.
All right.
Just
Marcia.
a question, because I'm doing the minutes here. The first one, what was the first suggestion? What type of housing for?
A joint meeting with the trust to discuss what kind of housing we think we need next in terms of,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
anybody else? Was it Marcia?
Yeah, related to what Fran says, because I know you've talked about updates. I've actually, with George's permission, I've been doing a lot more work on data sources. I've talked to Karen, who did the 2017 study. I'm looking at indicators and what's easily updatable. And I think a general discussion of what would be the purpose of the data, because it really depends on what you want to use the data for. So if you really want to update the plan, that's one whole thing. We have the census information coming out probably by the end of this year into early next year. So that provides a whole trove of things. But also, I think looking at, again, what the good work you guys did for the town meeting, you might want to think about your communication strategies and what data would help communicating for the next town meeting and the spring town meeting, which might be a little different. So what I'd like to do is maybe Nancy, you and I can have a conversation about how to frame that agenda item, and I can come back with what I think would be most helpful, what can be done in-house as opposed to having to go out and get a consultant, and what would be easily updatable. That's the thing I'm looking for, is what data would be easily updatable as well as useful, not to mention easily accessible and costs no money. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. I've talked to George about it. So why don't, Nancy, I talk to you about it and we can frame an agenda topic around that.
It sounds terrific. Thank you, Marcia. What a good committee. I'll just say that. All right, anybody else? Those are really good topics. That'll keep us busy for a while. Okay, can we have approval of the minutes from the June 1st meeting? May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second? All in favor of approving these minutes? Nancy, James,
Yes.
Nancy Wren, yes. Fran,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Rich?
Yes,
Okay, 500. All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 7th. The question was asked of me, when are we going back to town hall? We had decided we would stay for the summer. Mr. Stuckett, who's not here, wants to go back live in person. So I couldn't have got there today, but maybe by September I'll get there, and hobble myself in there. What do you think? Do you want to go back and start meeting back in the Skakit room again? Or do you, I mean, I think we're allowed to do this, but he felt that we should probably go back in public again. So I don't,
Is it
do you
possible?
have any opinions about, do we have to take a vote on that? Or? Yes.
Is
Fran,
it possible to meet somewhere where it can be sent out publicly, so our meetings are public and
it can
viewable?
be done there too. Both Skakit and,
Is that
in fact, they
possible now?
put it the wrong way on the board today because it was supposed to, they put it down as a hybrid that we could have some there and
Oh,
some
okay.
Zoom. It's a small committee and it's like, I don't know, when you get there, you don't have enough people at the place. I don't know what happens. So
I think the rule
I
is
don't
you
know.
need to have a quorum in the room and then others can join virtually. But if you don't have a quorum in the room, it's an issue. I mean, Nancy, I will say that I was at the first trust board meeting in which we were in person, and I think it's just better. I think it's better to communicate in person. There's no lag. It just seemed to, it was nice to be back, I guess I should say. That said, I also have reservations about the current state of affairs. So
COVID,
I don't know what the answer is.
Can we leave it one more month for September this way? If you want to leave it virtual and think about it. I realize the COVID numbers are changing again. They could be changing the rules too. I don't know. Raise your hand if you want to go back to in person.
I think we should go back at least once in person this year. What date? At least once to just to kind of, you know, like Katie says, it was probably you miss a lot of things. We're getting used to this. Like it's nice to just turn on a computer and turn everything off, but it'd be also nice to just kind of like see everybody and, you know, have a discussion if we're going to be talking about larger topics.
Okay. So should we have an in-person September meeting? No?
Yeah, I think given, the uncertainties right now, what if we just touched base a week before or something and made the decision at that point when we know more? I don't know. It's hard to know.
Nancy, we just need to know like a week in advance to schedule the room. So you can wait to tell us and you can also, you can change it every time if you want. You can come back and then go back on Zoom. It's super flexible. Just FYI.
You, Mia. So to be
I mean,
continued,
Nancy,
I'll let you know
yeah.
for September.
If you're having trouble getting around, I think it's okay to stay virtual for
I think that
September and give you
yeah.
some more time to heal and look into October for maybe an in-person.
That's a
I would support
good
that.
compromise.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. What a good group. Anything else for the good of the cause? So a motion to adjourn, please. Oh, Rich, do you have something to say?
Oh, I just want to say thank you to Nancy James for taking the minutes over. It's I would have spent every time I would do the minutes during the meeting, and then if you go back to the video, it's really great to just to fill in the gaps that you may have missed. So
Great. Thank you. That's a good idea.
Thanks, Rich. And we thank you for doing that last year and being so accurate in your minutes. It was very helpful. So
Good.
like I said, it's a very good committee and very good adjunct townspeople who are helping us all the way along. So George and Marcia, thank you for what you do and continue to do to help us get where we want to be. I appreciate it very much. So motion to adjourn? Somebody?
Move.
Rich?
Second.
Katie? All in favor? Nancy James?
Yes.
Nancy Wren, yes. Fran McClendon?
Yes.
Katie Whibby?
Yes.
Rich Kendall?
yes.
All right, 500. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.